we can get started with the meeting. So I call the meeting of the Maine Recovery Council to Executive Committee to order. And I welcome any members of the public that may be attending this meeting. And as always, we always have something. So we will go around and just introduce ourselves for those zooming in to watch us, and then I'll go through the agenda and we'll make any additions or subtractions to that. So we'll start with Brendan. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks. Brendan O'Neill, Assistant Attorney General with the Maine Attorney General's Office. I'm not a council member, um, and that's my introduction.
All right, thank you. Betsy.
Betsy Fitzgerald, representing the litigating subdivisions.
Tess.
Works, and I'm the policy director for MRAP and a person with lived experience with substance use disorder.
Thank you. Deb.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deb Poulin. I am the Director of Clinical Services with the Office of Behavioral Health, and I'm here as an appointee of the governor.
Thank you. Katrina.
Hi, I'm Katrina Bonish. I'm with the Attorney General's Office, and I'm not a member of the council. But I did want to let you all know that Mary is currently listening. However, because she joined by phone, I can't promote her.
Okay. Thank you. Elizabeth.
I am Elizabeth Fortier. I am the coordinator for the council.
Thank you. And Grayson.
Hi, my name is Grayson. I am also a member of the Attorney General's Office.
Okay, and my name is Pat Kimball. I am the current chair of the Maine Recovery Council, and I also chair the executive committee. Mary Coyne is on the phone listening in her car, headed back home to hopefully get on the Zoom and join us. I just want to say to the people on here, Elizabeth and Katrina and Brendan and Grayson and Mary, 28 contracts went out this afternoon. Amazing work, amazing. And checks will be issued, and it's just exciting. So that was a lot of hard work. And I just want to say how much I appreciate that. I enjoyed signing those 28 contracts. That was a joy. So thank you all. That was a tremendous amount of work. So today's agenda is a couple of things we hope to accomplish. One is, first of all, we have to talk about procedures in interviewing, how we will go about interviewing the applicant for executive director. And the second piece is developing a list of questions because we want to be fair in making sure that all applicants get the same questions. And have a fair process. And the third thing we have to talk about is it's a busy time of year, and a good deal of our executive committee is not part of the interview process. But now, in reviewing the bylaws, we have to think this through because we may have a problem with quorum. Deb Poulin and Tess, as the chair, I asked you to join the group. You're not voting members of the executive committee, but I asked you here as members of the council because we wanted to make sure we had a lot of voices, some voices at the table in reviewing and interviewing candidates so that we able to have lots of people in on this process as much as possible without having 15 people. But we do have to talk about at some point what we're going to do in regards to being a voting quorum, because as Brendan and Betsy pointed out, we can't even go into executive session to do the interviews unless we have a quorum. And our interviews are all done in executive session in order to protect the privacy of the people who are applying for the position. And we do know, Mary's not here, and I don't know if Grayson or anyone else knows, we do have multiple candidates, which is great. Last I knew we had 3 candidates.
We currently have 8 candidates.
8! Okay. That jumped since I last talked to Mary. All right. We have 8 candidates. So the process will be what we used before was when the applications close, um, Grayson or Mary or someone will send all of us all of the applications to review. Excuse me.
Bless you.
So we will review, we will get in via email all of the applicants, and I'm going to ask you to read them, review them, rank them, and determine which ones you believe you would like to know more information on an interview. It's not necessary to interview all 8, I don't think, but we'll wait and see who they are, but we'll go from there. I just don't, I think interviewing 8 is just, it's overload. So I think we look at our top, what we believe that looks on the resumes as our top candidates and go from there. The interviews are held, for those who don't know, on Zoom in executive session. We'll interview them, then we'll talk a little bit after the interviewer leaves. We'll talk a little bit and then interview the next one. And then we'll determine at the end of the interviews who we will ask to bring before the full council. We will make one recommendation for the full council to vote on, and we were aiming for the May meeting. But we're going to have a special meeting, and I don't have the dates in front of me because we can't get the interviews and everything done. Grayson, do you know, or Katrina, do you know the date of that special meeting?
I believe it's supposed to be held on the 16th, which is a Friday, 2 weeks from today. I also
Okay.
want to note that the submission for applications is open till 5 p.m. today, so we might still get more.
Yep. No, 8's enough. Although I can't say that the 9th one may be a great one, so I can't say that. Um, all right, so it's the 16th. So we've got some work to do. Any questions about the process so far? We did it when we interviewed Mary, we did it when we were in Elizabeth, and went really well.
I guess, Pat, that's what I was going to say is I think that we've used the process. It
Mhm.
worked well. I would, I guess, encourage us to use the same process again.
Yep. Well, if we can find a quorum, we will. So Joe was not able to attend this meeting, but Joe did, and I think I sent it on to Grayson and Katrina and asked them. He submitted some questions that he thought we would ask the candidate. And so if you could put up Joe's suggested questions.
Pat, looks like Brendan has his
Yep.
hand up.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see it. Pardon?
Pat, before you put the questions up, let me just ask whether in the past the committee publicly discussed the questions.
I believe we did.
Okay. That was
Betsy, do you
that
remember?
I think we did, yeah.
okay. If that's how you've handled it in the past, then there you go.
So 2 things. We either publicly did it or we did it via email, because I know in the last round, um, we went public with the questions, that the candidates knew
Yep,
the questions before the interview.
correct.
That right, and I think that was a change. That might have been a change from the first time
Yeah,
because there was a glitch in the process, and that was a
correct.
cure for the glitch.
Correct.
Correct.
So I guess the only issue is whether you want to have the questions be publicly available at this point. It's up to you.
So here's my question to the group. If we don't go public with the questions, the only way to do this is to go into executive session, which means we don't have a quorum to go into executive session. So either I don't know what the answer is. So it either puts it to sort of a halt because we can't go into executive session, or we do it via email. But even email is public information if it's council
Yeah.
business.
And I'm not sure you could do it over email.
So that's the predicament I'm in, and I'm looking for feedback. Tess?
Thanks, Pat. So if we did do it publicly right now, it's public. Presumably, candidates may know to watch the video to have the questions, which maybe might put them at an unfair advantage. So if we were to go forward with the discussion today and having it be public, would we then send the questions to all the candidates so that there would be an equal playing field?
That's what we did the last time
Great.
because we knew that one candidate knew the questions. And so we emailed when we invited them to the interview, gave them an interview, we emailed them the questions. So everybody knew the questions beforehand. Even Elizabeth's favorite question, which was, what's the last book you read? So what's the pleasure of the group?
Well, I think if we're going to move forward, then we kind of have to move forward by allowing the questions to be public. Otherwise, we're going to sit here and twiddle our thumbs. And we won't be able to meet the May 16 drop dead date. So, okay, all right, this is where we are. Let's let the questions go and move forward.
Yep. That's my thought. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I mean, it isn't really about the question. It's really about the candidate being able to answer the question. So it's sort of like knowing the question before an exam. You have to study for it. And if you come to the interview and you still can't answer the question, I guess that sort of tells us something about someone's preparing for meetings,
Yep.
which it does tell you something. So I think the fair thing to do at this point, unless you have an objection, is to move forward, develop some questions, and then when people are asked for the interview, we'll make sure that every candidate we interview gets the questions in advance.
It worked before.
Yeah.
Let's roll.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I know that most interviews ask the same questions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I always did when I
They're
interviewed.
not real shockers. So, I think that, it's a rare interview I've ever been in where, unless it was with a reporter, that I said, what? Why would you ask that question? So, all right, let's move forward. So, I do suggest, if we're all in favor, that, but before we put up Joe's suggestions, because I really like his suggestions, that we do ask the question to make sure that they've read the job description.
Mhm.
And that if there's anything in the job description that concerns them, that they don't think they can do, or just in general, just make sure that they read it, they understood it, and if they had some questions in regard to what the responsibilities of the position is. And that's just a general question that most interviews start with.
Yep.
All right. Okay, then let's look at Joe's questions. I sort of like the way he did it. It's a little bit different from the ones we had with when we interviewed Mary for this position, as well as when we interviewed Elizabeth. Oh,
Can
can we
I
see?
can I ask one question before we do start with these? How many
Yeah.
questions are we going to ask?
Well, I think before we asked 6 questions, I believe. I think,
Well, that's it. I mean, Joe's got a list here of,
yeah.
I see 10 on my screen. And we have 6. That's now we're up to 16.
Yeah, no. We would change out if we use the
We'll
questions.
swap a few.
Yeah. I
Okay.
would just because his questions went into areas that we didn't go into before, but I don't know how anybody else feels, but asking 6 questions I think is sufficient if the questions get to the areas that we hope to define as important to us. But I don't think you want to have 16, 18 questions for an interview.
That's my point.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what I liked about Joe's was, well, let me tell you some of the ones I liked. Um, he had questions in there about grant programs and oversight. Um, his question was, the council will oversee a substantial grant-making portfolio. What experience do you have managing and overseeing public and private grant programs, and how do you ensure accountability and transparency?
Okay.
So I really like that question.
Then let's ask it.
Um, he had can you all read that? I mean, I have a piece of paper in front of me. I can't possibly read that, but
I liked the change management question. Yeah, I think we're navigating a lot of uncertainty,
yep.
and funding can be various lines of funding can be uncertain. And even though MRC is in charge of that one line, oftentimes the individuals we're supporting or the programs are relying on multiple lines of funding, which creates uncertainty. And the council is still relatively new and storming and norming still, I think, just in the couple of meetings I've been in. And so I kind of like the idea of seeing how somebody would lead change. But I'm only one voice and I'm new.
So for me, I think that sometimes although the Maine Recovery Council is not involved in politics or the issue of that, politics plays a role on how we function in the grantees that we work with. We know that we will have a new governor. Governor Mills has been supportive in whatever, but there will be a new governor. If there's a new governor, there could be a new attorney general. We also have a lot of things going on federally that has changed the financial climate for a lot of people involved with prevention, treatment, recovery, and harm reduction. And that certainly is a big thing. So for me, Deb, I agree. I like that question. That is the opiate epidemic and recovery landscape is rapidly evolving. How do you adapt to changing needs, and how do you lead others through this uncertainty?
And you're really getting to what I was not saying, which is even though this is non-political, everything is political. And particularly when you're talking about the opioid epidemic and best ways to address and otherwise. And when you're working with this sort of council, we are going to have changes in our state administration and they are going to have different views, and that is going to create different uncertainties. And so I just thought it was really important in a multifaceted way. But
Any other questions that Joe had here? I was looking, I don't know why I can't find it. The other questions we had from the last interview.
They're in an email that you sent back a little ways.
No, why do I lose my own emails? I don't know.
Well, go look at what you sent me.
Oh, I'll Google up, Betsy.
While you're doing that, Pat,
Yeah.
the question that kind of, I guess, got my attention is that I have the data-driven one. I know that I don't want to say we're obsessed with collecting data, but I think everybody is obsessed with it now. And I think we probably ought to acknowledge that we have an expectation that the executive director will be providing some of that, at least in a summary form, which
Yeah.
means you've got to understand it.
Yeah, I think the question that was written here is have you used data and evaluation to guide strategic planning, resource allocations, and program development? What tools or framework have you used? I think for the past 2.5 years, we know that data is important and we know evaluation is, but we've been so busy trying to get these grants out and the money out that we have not concentrated on that. And I think it is an area that we will be concentrating on because one of the things we want to look at is it is data and did our funding have an impact?
My point.
And so the executive director really needs to not necessarily be an expert in the data because we have the Catherine Cutler Institute helping with some of that data, but they have to have a knowledge base as to how to use it and how to best um, uh, do evaluations. So, yeah. Okay. Anybody else have questions that they think?
I'll chime in. I really like the question about collaboration and stakeholder engagement
Yep.
because this person will be interfacing with many diverse perspectives, different groups, and I think this really gets at communication, which I know is something that we highlighted pretty extensively
Yeah.
in the job description. So I might even add with this question maybe the public facing component of also interacting with the media and external groups if we're trying to limit the number of questions.
Yep. I think that looks good. So you would take that question, the collaboration one, and also add in there um uh almost taking the first question about the approach with public and the board and add that into the collaboration one. Is that what you're saying,
It's an
Tess?
yeah, it's an option. Like if we have a
Yeah.
limited number of questions, if we
Yeah,
wanted to just get to the communication piece, we could
yep.
maybe bundle it.
Yeah, I think you could do that. Okay. Any
Sorry.
other any other questions people think should be what other questions do you think we'll add there? We're going to add the
Well, if we add these four, are going back to the list that we used before, are we deleting one of those and replacing one of them or two of them, whatever, with one of the ones that we've just identified that we like?
yeah, or combining them. Are they the same? And
I think for me, that would be the next step. But you're driving.
I'm not driving.
We are
Mary's driving. Oh, driving that
this discussion.
I would like to be a passenger. So, Betsy, do you have those other questions in front of you?
You hang on a second and I probably can find them. As soon as I make this thing start to work.
Oh, wait a minute. I have my, oh, this is the January 10th one, but um, the first question was, thank you for your interest in the Maine Recovery Council. To begin with, can you tell us something about yourself? That question, I think we can combine with the job description. So you could say, have you read the job description? And can you tell me parts of the position that you believe you excel in? Um, and so you could leave out that first one and combine it in a way that the job description would be with number one.
Yeah.
Then the second one was, while the council will provide guidance and direction, a lot of the work is self-directed.
Yep. That's the second one.
Yeah, that was third one was, do you read that with, again, we could combine that one with that, and then the Remain Recovery is responsible for overseeing millions of dollars. I think we could replace that one with two or three of them from this list.
Okay.
So we would start out, and please speak up if I'm too. So we would start out the interview questions with, and I'll reword them and send them to you. And you can either say yay or nay in my draft to you. The first question will talk about the job interview and and tell us why you believe, you have an interest in this position, and after reading the job description, what parts of this position do you believe you would excel in?
Yep. Okay.
That would be the first question. The second question would be about provided guidance and direction. A lot of the work is self-directed and requires you to work independently. So that would be two. And then we could do the change management question, which would be three. The question on collaboration, four. Data-driven, five. And grant overseeing being six. So what would be missing out of there?
What was the last book you read?
That was Gordon's.
I know. I'm just saying. You asked what was missing.
Yeah, that's the one. We asked that question. We can do that again if you'd like. But those are the questions I'm thinking would be the best, and I can reword them. But is there something that you believe this executive director's position we need to ask the candidate that you need to know that's really important to you and to the council?
Pat, I think that the questions that you've kind of summarized, and I realize that you'll rework them a little bit more,
Yep.
but I think what happens and what I remember happening in the last interviews was that the candidate would answer and then it would kind of spark a, okay, but, or in addition to, which we're going to do, which is always an option. And so it's like, well, here's an additional question, but it's not a question that is open to everybody because it was inspired or triggered, if you will, by that particular candidate's response.
Correct.
So I think what you've said, what you just finished kind of reading off, gets to the basics.
Okay.
I think, and I'm only one person here, so.
Thank you, Betsy. Tess.
Yeah, I really like the list that you just laid out. I think that covers a lot of areas of job functions. One thing I would be really interested is learning about the candidate's familiarity with, harm reduction, recovery, treatment, if they have had any experience with this area. I know we had talked about at another meeting, um, having maybe not necessarily some preference, but having a bonus for candidates that really know about recovery,
Mm-hmm.
since they're going to be doing so much vendor management, where they're going to be talking to recovery centers, knowing the difference between harm reduction and treatment, I think is really important. So I don't think if it doesn't come up organically, like Betsy, you had just mentioned, the candidates will be talking about themselves. I really liked in the original draft that you had sent out,
Yeah.
the question about like elaborating on prevention, treatment, recovery, and harm reduction services. So my preference would be if it doesn't come up organically in the interview, that we're able to gauge in some way their familiarity with the topic, since it is somewhat of not necessarily a specialty, but the things that we all can talk about very easily, like the culture
Mm-hmm.
and language of substance use. I imagine in other fields, if they didn't have any experience in our world coming in, there would be a huge learning curve.
It would be huge test, huge. You know what? I see that that's the one that said it talks in there about access to, yeah. We can word a question in there. I think I can probably, yeah, I think it's important that we know, and it may come up that we see it right off in the resume that that they have experience, but I think we can word a question in there as part of this. Um,
Or they don't have any experience, in which case, why are we interviewing somebody who has no experience?
yeah, because
No offense, but
yeah.
that doesn't make sense to me. But
Oh, I think someone could work in a different sector and have all the communication skills, grant portfolio, interfacing with the press, leading a board, but maybe they did that in an area that wasn't quite in the subject matter.
point taken, Tess. And I didn't mean it to sound like, the door is shut. I'm just saying that that would be one of the factors that I think is important, that somebody at least has a working,
Yeah.
understands the vocabulary.
Correct. And again, you can have people who have, served at a leadership role who weren't necessarily worked up through the ranks as a counselor or whatever, but they have a knowledge base, but they
Yep.
at least know the language. They know, again, it's not that they know or that they studied counseling in school, but I do think for me, a candidate would have to have some really special skills if they didn't have a knowledge base of substance use disorders, in some form. If they came in cold turkey,
Exactly.
particularly in this position where it is so independent, you don't have a whole staff to get your knowledge base on. You have a council, but you really don't have, say for instance, if you were CEO of a substance abuse agency, you could get your knowledge from a clinical director in regards to certain things. But you can't do that in this position because you are a sole contractor. Um, and so it's important that you have a knowledge base. I will work that question in there, and make sure that it's added in some way and keeping it at our six. I'll figure it out.
So you can have seven.
Oh, now you're breaking the rules, Betsy.
No, we did, but I'm just saying that one more.
Can. We can. And
No,
again, if time runs out, we may, if someone is chatty and so okay. Mary, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
Last time I saw
And
Mary was in a It was in a parking lot. We were handing signatures over to each other. Uh, all right. So any other areas do you think that it's important? All right, so my role this afternoon is to rewrite these questions and get them all to you, and then you just give me a yay or a nay, or you can give me edits. Um, I take criticism well, so please, go right at it. I'm not thin-skinned. All right. So, Mary, one of the conversations, were you part of this, that we have a concern we don't have a quorum?
I caught parts of that. I was in and out of service, but I had spoken with Grayson and Elizabeth about that before I left this morning. Wasn't sure where the conversation ended up, so not great to hear we don't have a quorum. Today we don't have the quorum, and we won't have one next week. Is that the consensus?
I'm going to have to double check with Paul and Joe. I have to have, what's the magic number, 4?
Yes.
Yeah. And I can't even go into executive session unless I have 4. So we could say, we could all interview and just make a general recommendation without a vote. I mean, technically, we don't need a vote to make a recommendation to the full council, but we can't go into executive session without a quorum.
Do we need 4 council members present the entire duration of the meeting, or could they be present just for the vote to go into executive session?
It is
That
my
is-
understanding that they have to be present to open the meeting, and at that point, if they are not there afterwards, it's okay.
Yes, that's correct. And they do have to be members of the committee.
So we just gotta. So I will have a conversation with Joe and Paul about that, and Ben.
We could also ask Ben if he can. We need
Yeah.
one. We need two out of the 3 of
Yeah.
them to be present for at least the vote. Correct?
Correct, to go into executive session. Do we need them to vote out?
No,
Just to go in?
yes,
And
that's
if you
my
can-
understanding.
Yeah,
So,
okay. And once we go into executive session, we don't come out.
correct. Well, if you come out, then you have to go back in again if you want to. So you kind of, the answer is no, we don't come out until.
Correct. So we'll be able to do the 2 meetings, which is the 1 meeting to discuss the applicants, and 2, the second meeting to do the interviews.
If we don't come out of executive session, but if we say we are suspending executive session, I believe I believe we can do it that way.
Okay. All right. And again, they will, they can come, I forget which meetings they could go and couldn't go, but they were going to say that, if they couldn't be part of the whole thing, they thought they would disrupt it. But I will explain to them that I don't have a problem with them, reviewing the applications and then coming in to do the vote. And then if they have to excuse themselves, to excuse themselves. So, all right. And again, we're only making a recommendation to the full council.
Right.
We're not hiring anyone. We're just
Correct.
making a recommendation to the full council. Okay. All right. All right. So I have the questions. We have the format. I will figure out this blessed quorum thing. We do know that, okay. Any other things to discuss in regards to the interviewing of the executive director's position?
Don't think so.
Okay. So as the executive committee, I just want you all to be aware that Bruce Nodden has his resignation. He has a new position, and so he will be concentrating on that. So I will be working, we will notify, he's an appointee by the President of the Senate. So we will notify the President of the Senate that there is a position open for a nominee. Selfishly, I'm hoping it's somebody with Bruce's background because he serves on that committee with a unique background in his work with criminal justice and restorative justice and the drug courts. And it would be nice to continue to have somebody with that background on the committee, but we'll see. Um, so we will have another new member of the council. And we may have another resignation coming our way due to an employment thing, but we'll wait and see until until I get the official letter. Um, so, um, I just wanted you as the executive committee to know that we will have some vacancies and hopefully get them filled.
Pat, can I ask you a question related to the the interviewing process? When we do send out the applications, we'll have everyone review them. I think I heard you mention everyone ranking them as well. Is there an ideal number of candidates you're hoping that we can interview? Again, knowing we have 8 right now, that number may change. We may receive even more. I think if we have a goal in mind for how many folks is sort of the maximum we can interview, that might be helpful for us to discuss now before we review the applications.
I guess I was thinking
Go ahead,
3.
Bethany. Hmm?
Oh, I said, I guess I was thinking 3. I don't know who said it.
Yeah,
I will say 3.
I was going to say 3. No more. I was going to say 3 with a max. I was going to say 3 with a max of 4. Depending once I see these applicants, I may say, I just can't. But we will discuss that once we've all seen them. But I don't see any purpose in interviewing a whole lot, knowing that if we have, particularly if we're in real agreement once we see them, that, these couple people are really our top candidates. I think it's really to do all 8 is just doesn't make any sense unless someone feels differently. But I'd say 3, possibly 4. I'd like to see them first before I did that.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, great.
That's my goal. And the interview usually takes about an hour. I think we did some of them at 45 minutes, depending on that, but we could block out an hour. That's sort of my goal.
Yeah, I think it's probably wise of us to block off the hour for these interviews, a little bit longer than the coordinator position.
Yep.
And that'll be helpful for all of us to keep in mind when we do review the applications that we don't plan to interview more than 4 folks.
That is my goal. Again, I haven't seen him, so it's hard to say. I'm impressed that we got 8.
And
So that's a really good thing because we don't extensively advertise.
we don't. The one other thing while I'm thinking of it, I'm sorry that I'm generating questions in my head kind of after the fact, but I think in the past we've asked questions regarding compensation and salary. I know right now we have an up to amount. I'm wondering if the committee would also like to include a question about, the candidates' prospective salary range and what they would find acceptable, within that 110 range.
Why don't we, at the end of the interview, we can ask that general question, if offered the position, when can you start? And we can ask at that same time, do you have any expectations on what that salary would be for you?
Great.
That sound reasonable? You
Yep.
won't take a lot of time with that question. It'll just be sort of the end of the interview.
Wonderful.
Because again, I don't know, I haven't seen the applicants, but we don't know when they can start. And I think that's an important question to ask. I mean, we know they have to sign a contract with us quickly. But that contract can say their start date is different than the signed contract. Any other questions, Mary, that you had that you didn't get a chance to ask? when you were driving?
None at the moment. If some come to mind, I'll be sure to let you all know. But I think candidates can expect that, we'll have a set list of questions, and we won't ask every candidate all the questions necessarily, and then we may have follow-up questions. And so we can always adjust as needed on a case-by-case basis to make sure we're learning as much as we can from each of these candidates, who I know will be very well qualified for the position.
Correct. And Mary, were you part of this because we couldn't go into executive session, um, which means discussing these questions are public? And some of the candidates may know enough to get on and listen in, some won't. So in fairness, when we give them a date for the interview, we're also going to send them the questions in advance.
Okay, that sounds great.
It's just a fairness. Other than that, we couldn't go into executive session to discuss it because we didn't have the quorum. And so here we are. We decided just to do it.
Great. And is the plan to refine that list, or at least review
Yeah.
kind of a final list of questions when we do go into executive session?
Yeah,
Okay.
I will send out either by the end of today or first thing Monday morning, the questions that we discussed here, what we're adding. I'm going to send it out to everybody, give them a little bit to review it to make sure I got it all in. And if I didn't, they can add to it. But I will get that to you by hopefully the edited list to you by Monday. I'm hoping this afternoon I get my draft to everybody.
All right. Sounds great.
That's my
Thank you.
goal. It's raining. I can't do anything else. So I might as well type questions.
Not raining here.
Not raining there. I'm going to Washington County then. It's raining here in Penobscot.
No,
Not yet, Betsy.
I'm right. Yeah, but it'll be raining when you guys have sunshine because we get the tail end.
It's coming your way, except I
Yep.
need it not to rain. I need my grandson to get his 2 final games in. Or 4 final games. Okay. Any other questions or concerns in regards to this process and where we're going? All right.
Good.
Record time. Thank you all very much. Look for my email. And again, please let me know if I've missed something out of it. And we will talk soon.
Thank you, Pat.
Stay dry and find the sunshine.
Bye.
Thank you.